Imagine an empire so rich its gold could bankroll Europe for generations, and a single banking family so powerful they could build or break that empire overnight. In the 1700s, India wasn't just a land of kings and palaces, it was the financial heart of the world, and at the center of it all stood one name whispered across courts and battlefields alike: Jagat Seths, banker of the world. They weren't ordinary merchants, they were the shadow behind the throne, holding more gold, silver, and credit than even the mighty British East India Company. Every ruler, every rebellion, every war in Bengal moved through their ledgers. With one stroke of their pen, they could decide who ruled and who fell. But how did a handful of Indian bankers become kingmakers and unknowingly hand India to the British? In the early 1700s, Bengal wasn't chaos, it was cash flow. Its fertile plains produced more revenue than all of Britain combined. And unlike Europe, India's economy ran not on kings' taxes, but on merchant bankers, private financiers who could move money faster than any treasury. At the center stood the Jagat Seths, a powerful Marwari family who turned Bengal's booming trade into a private financial empire. They lent fortunes to princes, financed armies, and even issued their own bills of credit centuries before central banks existed. Think of them as J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and the IMF rolled into one. But private money has a dangerous power. It can speak louder than emperors. By the 1730s, the Mughal Empire weakened, and Bengal's Nawabs ruled like kings. Behind them, the Jagat Seths quietly became the real power. Then came 1757, and the fateful Battle of Plassey. The British East India Company, led by Robert Clive, wanted not just trade, but control. They didn't have the money or influence to defeat Bengal's ruler, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, but the Jagat Seths did. Tired of Siraj's reckless rule, the Seths struck a secret deal with the British. They financed the company's army, supplied funds, and bought loyalties. And when the battle began, Siraj's generals, already bribed, stood still. The fight lasted barely a few hours. The British didn't win through might, they won through money. Siraj was captured and killed, Bengal fell, and the Jagat Seths believed they had secured their influence forever. But they had just bankrolled their own downfall. The East India Company learned a deadly lesson. Money conquers faster than war. They seized Bengal's right to collect taxes, the Diwani, turning a trading firm into a ruling power. The Jagat Seths, once masters of Indian finance, were reduced to mere lenders under British supervision. It was the first hostile corporate takeover in Indian history. Before 1757, Bengal's wealth stayed in India, funding its cities, artisans, and industries. After 1757, it flowed one way: to London. Economist Dadabhai Naoroji later called it the drain of wealth. Britain extracted what would equal $45 trillion today. That money built factories in Manchester, powered the Royal Navy, and financed Britain's Industrial Revolution, all from Indian revenue. India's once thriving financiers, the Jagat Seths, the Marwaris, the Banyas, disappeared. The British dismantled the indigenous credit system and replaced it with their monopoly. By the 1770s, the Jagat Seth fortune, once said to exceed the Bank of England, had vanished. The irony? Britain perfected the very financial system India had built, only to use it against her. For the next century, Indian wealth became the lifeblood of the British Empire. Indian taxes paid British soldiers. Those soldiers protected British trade, and British trade ensured even more Indian taxes could be collected. A brutal, elegant machine of empire. The legacy of the Jagat Seths lived on, not in name, but in the system they created. a decentralized network of credit that became the backbone of colonial finance. But when the flow of money, the lifeblood of the empire, finally dried up, so did Britain's power. By the mid-1800s, the East India Company collapsed under its own greed, and by 1947, Britain left India, buried under debts exceeding 200% of its GDP. Empires don't fall because armies lose. They fall when the money runs out. For the Mughals, it was the Jagat Seths. For the British, it was the bond markets. History doesn't just repeat, it compounds. The saga of the Jagat Seths is more than a story of one family's fortune. It's a timeless reminder that in every age, those who control the money control the empire. If this video gave you some value, then don't forget hit like, subscribe, and share anyone who like that type of content.